Hey guys, welcome to 2018. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Coggins, and we're a bit early, aren't we, Stuart?
We are, yes. We recently got some interesting news, have we not? And it's worth talking about, so we wanted to share it with you guys and show you some fantastic renders. Of course, done by Samuel. He always does a great job. So
Stuart,
what are we looking at today?
We got scale. We got scale. We actually got scale. Oh my god, it came out of nowhere. This first image is the Eagle Moss. They released their front covers of the Shinjo and the Discovery. And if you look at the second picture, that's what they look like. Brand spanking. And people noticed, as they should, length. Official canon reveal. And since then, they've actually released pictures of all the front covers, which I'm sure we'll look at. Not yet with lengths. But we now have the official canon lengths. And boy, we've been deducing, talking about this for God knows how long. And now we can exclusively, with these great renders, and show you all, this is what it looks like. This is how potentially silly it looks. Real scale, real world. Our perspective can now be set in stone with how it feels and fits into the universe. So are you excited, Stuart, to see how big the ship really is? So take us to the next picture then, Stuart.
All right, so the next picture we got is, well, this is the standard one we've seen for many years. A bunch of scales of all ships we love and know, from the TOS all the way up to TNG. And the movies, including Star Trek 3.
And this is the Andy Prober Star Trek 3. Why is this chart important, Stuart? Why do you think I've put this in here?
To get a baseline for Starfleet ships over the decades, leading up from TOS all the way to TNG.
Yep. The style, it seems that as eras go by, things get progressively bigger as they jump, and different functions of different ships. Science ship Grissom is smaller, Reliant functionally different ship, and that is the theme is everything gets bigger. And the TOS Connie was the strongest ship at the time. Excelsior was strongest ship at the time. C was, D was. That's the sliding scale, and that's what we know. So it should fit into this because this ship is post launch of the Connie, original Connie, but pre how it looks in TOS.
Yes.
So it's more advanced than its original. So it should be in that ballpark, just with long nacelles. That's fine. They got long nacelles, right?
Yeah, and it should also be stated that the Grissom that we see here is actually a science vessel.
Yes.
And quite substantially smaller than the refit Enterprise, things like that. Even the Miranda, which was originally the Avenger class, which is supposed to be like a more powerful than the Constitution class, it kind of got relegated to the scientific kind of field for Star Trek II, scientific research. So you can kind of use that in the same vein as more of a scientific ship. So you kind of get a scale for the scientific ships of
and
the
that
era.
ship's a ton, and those both are newer as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's dive into the perspective shot of the two. This is how they are are really scaled together. So this doesn't give you the exact indication of the scale. So I want to do it sort of vague, but just as a feel. What do you think now seeing both together?
This is what I was afraid the size would be. I was hoping against hope that the saucer on the Discovery would be the same size as the Connie, just to kind of make it more relegated into that time period. But as you can see here, it's quite a bit bigger.
And one of the really strange things about this ship is that, and again, they keep digging themselves little holes, calling D7 a D7 where it's not.
Yeah.
Mentioning the crew size, which is exciting, but it's only like 150 people, and the Connie's
137, I think. Yeah.
And the Connie's 400, so a bigger ship with less people. I mean, these things can happen, obviously, but again, it's flying in the face of the logical Star Trekian progressive steps of making sense. And this shot's great. It doesn't really show exactly the scale. So the next picture, Stuart, is the side view, and I prefer the top view, but the side view, correctly scaled. Huh.
Well, it goes back to what you were just saying about crew size. 137 was stated on the Discovery, but they also stated that it could also undergo or maintain 300 scientific experiments at one time. So there's obviously a lot of room for science equipment, science labs, different experiments ongoing. Plus, we don't know how much room the spore drive takes as far as engineering goes in that secondary hull.
And by look of the spore drive cave, it's probably that plus some. I mean, there's big spaces in the ship that aren't normal. So, I mean,
where they grow the actual spores are quite big. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm certainly not against the crew size. it kind of makes it feel more specialist. But
Yeah.
straight away, I mean, it does. It's interesting how straight away it does kind of feel right. I mean, this is our model that Barry made, then Matt finalised. So window size is ignore window size. That's a texture. It's not real. But as soon as you put it like this, it's like, okay, no, actually the saucer kind of feels. I can see it. You know, I think it's roughly what we were guessing anyway. But to have the final number, it's like, oh, okay, huh.
So the next one is the one you wanted to see, and the one I was excited to see also is from the top. Now, here the inner ring is basically roughly the same size as the Constitution class cruiser saucer.
Yes.
And it's they both spin, don't they? The outer one spins and the inner one spins.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe the outer ring, the addition of that is what makes that spore drive technology possible, some kind of weird thing. But I don't know what to think, really.
Well, I think that's a really excellent observation. I mean, we're basically going far and above beyond the film. It was a good film. Beyond what they thought to try and justify this, which is what we've done always for canon. If you look at this ship as, you're right, the inner ring is the habitation zones. That's where the functional stuff is. It's still less than the Connie-ish, which is slightly thicker, but less because it's got the other holes in, but fine. Then that neck piece, that's equivalent to the secondary hull, and all of the secondary hull is shuttle bay, spore technology, but that's it. There's nothing normal in that zone. So if you break it down to neck plus inner ring, that's the ship, that's the normal ship, and they built the spore tech around it. Obviously, then the nacelles are extra armoured because they have to survive interdimensional travel, whatever. So suddenly you've got a ship, but it's really big technology because you've got to deal with some really hefty science. And it needs a huge ship to do it. Which would almost mean it'd be really awesome to see, like last episode, that middle ring and the neck just separate. And that's what actually the Discovery livable, worthwhile ship is. You know? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, that would make perfect sense. Because we know the crew on the Constitution class under Kirk's command is 430, and most of that habitat area is the saucer section. Even in the Constitution class, the secondary hull is more for like their food production facilities,
bowling
their
alley,
pool, their bowling alley, shuttle day.
Not kidding.
No, we're not. And if you've seen a lot of the shots, zoom out shots from Discovery where they're zooming out from the quarters, yes, it is the inner ring. So I assume that the outer ring is more technology-based, kind of to aid the spore drive, probably some science labs, things like that.
And apart from the inner ring of the outer ring, which is probably just like a walkway with little rooms when they need them, like the stuff to monitor the technology. But yeah, I totally like the entire thing is just hardware, It's probably Jeffrey's tubes, but that counts as hardware, it's to get to places. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, when we start talking about it in that aspect, I don't have a problem with the different size, because it is an experimental ship with an experimental technology, experimental drive, hence the longer warp nacelles. Mm-hmm. And the long warp nacelles might have a function that relates to the spore drive technology, hence the length of them, adding that additional technology. I don't know if the standard warp nacelles, or the warp nacelles on this, are just for the standard warp that we see it do, because we know it can go to standard warp as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or if that's just half of the nacelle or something. Maybe the extra part is to enhance the spore drive technology. Who's to say?
Well, my gut says, since this is meant to be still a newer ship than this conventional design, is that it is... Because again, now we have the exact scale, so this is literally how it is. You can picture it much more easily. I'm kind of thinking that, the refit nacelle, there is still actually that cone in the front is just hidden under armour, under hull. Yeah. So I'm thinking that this is literally just a warp nacelle, standard, but a little bit longer because it's a bigger ship, so a bigger warp bubble. Just more coils are needed. That makes sense. And just stick it in the middle of this warp nacelle, but have to cover it with a specialist armour. Because look at the top of the hull. There's all these lines and stuff. It's both aesthetics, but also must be some sort of armour, some sort of plating that helps whatever. And you would imagine going through a mycelial network that is the fundamental foundation of the universe, probably need some extra armour for that. I would vote for more hull plating. So what if they're inside the engines plus the plating to make sure that they're, functional properly?
Yeah. Again, I'd love to see a technical manual on this thing, like the ones that Rick Sternbach did for the Enterprise D, to find out how that spore drive technology works. I think that'd be very cool, and something we're probably going to see down the road, hopefully.
If they're clever, yeah.
Yeah, because I know I'd be all on board for reading that up on that. That'd make a great episode too.
But straight away, Stuart, does that not? I mean, I think we both went in thinking this is going to be too big, but I also feel like I've scared myself by rationalizing it so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was based on you're saying the inner saucer. Like, oh, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and because it is stepping outside the regular ships of the fleet, it's more of an experimental craft. It makes sense. That doesn't necessarily translate to when we see the Shinzo's size, but we'll talk about that more later in another episode, I'm sure.
Although one problem with our amazing retconning there, because they haven't thought this fully through, you can tell. They specifically mentioned, obviously, it's been a little while since we watched the episodes of Discovery, but they did mention we're working hard to retrofit spore drives on other ships.
Oh, yes, that's right. They did say that.
If they can be retrofitted onto other ships, you're not going to add a separate inner ring to every ship, because guess what? Ships are not designed to suddenly add 30% more mass. So that kind of makes this design feel like it's a weird ship that they happen to have. They happen to put a spore drive in.
Yeah,
because you need spinning, like will the saucer spin on a Reliant, on TOS Reliant? I mean, what do you?
It also raises the question: what's up with the sister ships? The Glenn had the spore drive technology. We know that, but where's the Crossfield? What's the Crossfield doing right now? Or was the Crossfield just the experimental one that was just used as a prototype? Maybe it's sitting in dry dock right now. It's not being used as an actual ship because it was more of a test bed for a lot of this.
Yeah, my gut says that was the tester of the ship, and then the Glenn was a tester of the drive. Yes, it was built around the drive, but you need to prove the ship works first. So they did the test, and then obviously that's the reserve ship, so that if they, they could develop it later on. But yeah, there needs to be a crossroads somewhere. But let's jump ahead a bit, because again, this was really interesting, and that actually changed my perspective quite a lot. Well, yeah. But the next picture is a side view, and I wanted to point this out that the Excelsior. And Eric Henry pointed out to me a little while ago, I always take it that in Star Trek 3, when they see the Excelsior, they're like, wow, it's such a big ship. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. I took that as it's a bigger ship. Both the technology is cool, but it's a next jump. And as you can see, the reef is not much bigger than the TOS Connie. It's a big jump ahead in every way. Saucer, engines, secondary hull, it's just bigger. And I thought that was indicative of what they were thinking. Eric says he didn't take that from the movie. He thought because of, the transwarp tech. But then I pointed out in Star Trek 6, they say, that's a big ship. Not as big as a captain. So, pretty confident it's a big, if not the biggest ship of the era,
Yeah, exactly. I got the same feeling. Especially, when they first see it in Star Trek 3, it's like, it's impressive. But also, the Excelsior is experimental tech as well. It's the transwarp drive. So,
it's like I don't think Chekhov would know all about the Excelsior's transwarp. He wouldn't, if one of them didn't keep up with the sci-fi Starfleet Weekly and know about the transwarp drive, then he wouldn't be like, oh my god, as well. Be like, that's a nice ship. It's a bit small. We built a bigger ship 30 years ago. It's really quite small now.
Remember those Crossfield classes that nobody talks about? Those were pretty impressive too, right? This thing's not nearly as impressive.
But I wanted to show a scale shot with the Excelsior, which, like I said, we both consider to be this next step. And suddenly, and obviously you got a date, 2254 is when the Enterprise launched. That's not the TOS version, that's the Cage version. 2 years later, this thing launches hugely bigger. And then decades later, the Excelsior's launched. Oh, it's not as big or impressive anymore.
Yeah, it's all relative, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So, I guess we should go to the next picture. What do you think?
Sure. The next picture is another perspective on it. Because, and I will just point out, obviously, we know the nacelles take up over half the length. And there is a shot later on that gives a perspective on that as well. So, yes, it's only longer because the nacelles are huge, obviously. But still, we can still see roughly where the primary hull ends. So now we're jumping 100 years ahead, where this was the biggest ship of the era. They still didn't make it as big as the Crossfield class. They still couldn't design a ship big enough as the Crossfield. And just...
Not that they couldn't, they just didn't.
No, it just makes it... Oh.
See, I didn't think that the Enterprise E was smaller than it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Discovery's
then again...
Discovery's in the 700s, Enterprise E's in 600s of meters.
Wow. Then again, most of that for the Discovery is the nacelles, so...
But I mean, the Enterprise E has long nacelles too, so...
True. But... Yeah, well, the attachment points, the struts or the secondary hull or whatever of the Discovery does angle back too, so it kind of it elongates the shape when it's not really.
It's apples and oranges, but it does, in my opinion, detract from all the later ships. Because if the Discovery was, say, as big as the Excelsior in length, but over half that was the engines, then you'd be like, oh, it's a huge ship, but actually the surface area is really small. That would have fit in well for me. You look at the Excelsior, everything's thicker, bigger, chunkier. That's the tech, and they've slimmed down the need for, the warp engines with other tech. That would have been cool. But to have it bigger than the E, so many years later. I mean, if these ships were flying around, none of these ships would be ever impressive. It's like, why didn't Starfleet make a battleship for the Dominion War that was bigger? Why are you making ambassadors? Why are you making whatever? If it's still smaller than the Discovery. You know what I mean? And we know every other ship is of a comparative scale, and the Shinjo is still pretty hefty. Also breaks his rules as well. It's like, well, if every ship was big, then he shrunk again and then got bigger again. It's like, you can only suspend disbelief on this fictional universe so far.
Yeah, wow.
Which, speaking of, I threw in a D7 there.
Yeah, I noticed
because,
that.
The strongest Klingon warship of the time that, the Discovery would be fighting, because we're going to absolutely ignore the D7 from the Discovery because it's not a canon D7, so ignoring that because it's not correct. So suddenly, wouldn't the Klingons be like, damn, we're building small guys?
Well, yes. Again, that goes... Just, if you look at the scaling from the Klingon ships all the way up to TNG as well, it's the same thing, bigger, bigger, bigger. But still, the Discovery kind of dwarfs even the TNG, like, Vorcha and stuff. Well, not the Negvar maybe, but the Vorcha for sure.
Yeah. So... makes you wonder. I mean, Klingons want strength. Obviously, the sarcophagus ship was, I think it's like estimated 3 kilometers big or 2 kilometers or something.
Yeah.
So like 3. But it's like these Klingon ships are flying around, and it's like, oh, in a battle it would look pretty pitiful.
A little bit, yeah. But let's get a different perspective on things. Let's go to the front view. And here we can see more internal volume, especially on something like the Excelsior or the Enterprise E. There's quite a bit of substantial volume in that saucer and secondary hull of both of those ships.
Yeah.
Which kind of dwarfs the Discoveries a little bit because it's more flatter, more squat profile.
Mm-hmm. It really is perspective. I mean, this completely changes the feel. And again, this is Barry's model. It was made as the show was coming out, so it's not 100% accurate, disclaimers, all that jazz. But I wanted nice high-res renders rather than fully accurate, because it's pretty damn close. But yeah, I mean, you've got potentially room to have room. Definitely got rooms in the wings, but like I say, very thin, very stout. Obviously, compared to the E, you've got 29 decks. This has not got 29 decks. The Excelsior actually pretty hefty, whereas the Connie you can suddenly see. Okay, well, it's not. I mean, it's just differently proportioned, but
Yeah, see, this scaling makes it look a lot. It kind of justifies the scale a little bit as far as internal volume goes, but then again, like we said with the Discovery, there are a lot of science labs, obviously, if it can conduct 300 scientific missions at the same time. So I don't know what to say.
Just it tells you that the ship is long and thin.
Yeah,
and that's
no girth.
And the warp nacelles are obviously pushed out far enough so that the feel can be fine and stuff. It's not built in the same style, and so. But it does feel kind of weedy in this one, Yeah. Like the Enterprise feels much neater. Obviously the two Enterprises, the Connie, because it's all packaged in this very efficient bundle. Way more efficient than just flat stretches and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted, and someone said this. I hadn't considered it until someone said it, but real human scale, Stuart. This is fun because obviously the CG people on the team as they're making shots. We're never going to see it next to an Excelsior because they don't exist yet. Probably never next to a Connie because they're not going to use a real Connie. So whatever. But we have seen it compared to human scale roughly. So the next picture, that looks like what it does in the show scale-wise. That completely works for me based on what I've seen.
Yeah, and that's that's the shuttle bay door at the back, obviously. Quite a wide shuttle bay, but yes, this works for me as far as scaling goes. There's not a lot of deck space in that secondary hull.
Yeah, what you see is what you get. I mean, there isn't like it's just raw deck. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting actually.
That at least makes me realize that yes, they were consistent in the CG shots because it's about 2 and a bit decks tall, but the decks are thicker and there's like it's not just a single door; it's like a bit bigger and there's more. So yeah, that is about right to me. But let's go to the next picture. Again, the dude on the saucer, and again, obviously our fan model. Yeah. So pretty hefty. It's not really much of a sense of comparison, but big. I mean, but actually, look at the bridge. I mean, that all works for me for what we've seen in the show, I think.
No, that makes it feel much more realistic and more viable, in my opinion. Now, I almost got to jump back to that one of the first shots we saw of scale with Burnham standing on the hull. You could see the edge of the saucer. Remember that picture? We kind of guessed that there was like 2 decks maybe in that. This looks close-ish. I think they had her a little bit bigger there, but
yeah.
Again, I think it was just an artist interpretation. So
yeah, roughly right, but not quite. And you can see a better example of how big those in between. It's 2-3 people wide with space. That's exactly what we saw. So
yeah,
at least they were consistent. But Stuart,
yes,
again, I wanted to really be consistent, and this is fun, but it doesn't show the odd scaling within Trek universe because this feels fine to the show, but the show is not in its own bubble. It's prime timeline continuity of that time period. So the next picture, Stuart, is a bit of a weird one.
Ooh,
I don't think no one else.
Transporter accident.
Yeah, no one else can really do this, so I wanted to do it. Now, if you look closely, there is a little green man on the NX saucer, runabout. Again, very real scale. He's near the blue blinky, just close to the thing. And if you note, just so for scaling, the NX-01's leading edge, or the point at the front, is exactly on the edge of this Discovery model. So they are lined up. So this is how big the saucer is. And there is an auto render in a second. But as you can see, it's the entire size of the NX-01, basically. And that gives you a real sense of, you know how big the lots of things like the NX-01, but especially the bridge. Like, that's how big the bridge is. You know how big that bridge is. That's it compared to a runabout, compared to the bridge of the Shinjo. I mean, what do you think of this?
I mean, this is all the points I've reiterated through this whole thing. I mean, I can see a justification for this kind of scaling based on it being a scientific research vessel or experimental craft. I'm looking at the runabout there going, will the runabout fit in the shuttle bay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it'd be a tight fit, to be honest, but...
Well, I mean, I think you fit probably 3 side by side, but you'd have to, like, launch them backwards to get out. You couldn't turn. I guess you probably could with good piloting, but... Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is an interesting picture. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can tell the bridge size matches up perfectly, and I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. I'm sorry.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's a very cool picture, too. I like this morphine thing. That's cool.
And just to be clearer, the next picture is a direct side-by-side. Nice. And again, Barry's model, so it's not perfect. But yeah, it literally is. And this visually is so strange to me, seeing this. Because the Connie, you can sort of understand it, but this is the exact, is the entire NX-01, the entire hero ship, is just the saucer of this new ship. Okay, it's a lot of years later, and that in and of itself, I'm not against, because they could just really push tech. I mean, the NX-01 was a really small ship, but the NX-01 has, 10 less people than the Discovery? 120, 115 people. Discovery said has 137. So you're looking at very comparable people, and then all of the ship as well. But then, obviously, the NX-01, everything's in the saucer. So yes, saucer to sauced it in a ring saucer. Livable space and everything else.
I thought the NX-01 had a crew of 80-something. 86
or 80-something. Not a lot of people. Not numbers to remember, guys. Not a lot of people is what I'm going for here.
Yeah. And here again, you see the scaling of the inner saucer, or the inner ring compared to the saucer. 137 people. If that's all quarters and stuff, it works for me as far as that goes. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the crew complement of the Discovery being what it is. based on what the ship is.
With literally like 70% of the ship being used by
Yeah,
crew space.
I think that works though for what it is, right? So,
It's just
although it has a
weird.
huge bridge, it's such a huge bridge compared to other ships too.
It's very unnecessary, isn't it? Unnecessarily
It
big.
seems like it. Yeah, it's like a gymnasium. He's like yelling orders.
And I have one final picture, Stuart. Not a scale render, just something fun, just to show what it would look like in this era if this happened.
Very cool. This has to happen sometime in an episode. I would love to see this.
So this is what would happen contextually if the best ship of the Cleon fleet, the strongest ship of the canon Cleon fleet, the normal KDF, like not specialist house ships, just KDF, fleet of ships.
KDF is Klingon Defense Force for all those out there that don't know.
Kapla. I mean, it is such a... It's so strange. I mean, honestly, it does look like a JJ ship in this picture. Like, just the huge jump in scale and how different the feel is. Obviously, it's a simple term, but it's like you compare it to the canon, it's like... If it was really this battle, I mean, it's a pretty...
Yeah, well, again, I'd like to see it next to Akani in the show. Whether that'll happen, I'm not crossing my fingers or anything. Well, I am crossing my fingers, but I'm not holding my breath.
It'll happen, just not the correct Constitution class.
Well, I'd still like to see a variation of the Constitution class based on what they think. I think that'd be cool too. So
yeah, no, I'm all for that with spinning saucer because it's got spore drive ability.
yes.
Like it's built to have it, and they take it out. I don't know, but yeah. So I guess back to the sort of top pictures for the final, just to end on. But yeah, there you go, guys. The scale was revealed. The official scale of Discovery is 750 meters, 0.5 or 750.5 meters. In the same timeline as the Connie.
Yes.
Glad we finally know, and now I can do more renders, animations of it, like at DS9 and stuff, and just say this is actually how it should look, how it would feel, you know?
Yeah. So, I guess the question is, what do you guys think about this size? When you heard this, what did you think? And don't worry, we're going to be covering the Shinzao and all that other goodness in different episodes, so just stay tuned.
And that's going to be really interesting, because Shinjo is just another ship of the fleet. It's not experimental, not science, just another ship, which is pre-TOS. Yeah. So the rules it needs to follow are much closer than experimental something. So we'll see.
It's very true. It's very true. So let us know in the comments what you guys think. Did you like this episode? If you did, please click that like icon. That'd be awesome. Don't forget the bell notification icon. It tells you every time we upload a video. And we have some good stuff coming out. Discovery is coming back. We got a whole bunch of cool stuff on the way. 2018 is shaping up to be a good year, so stay tuned, guys.
And obviously, you guys know, tune in every single time because we have cool stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else.
That's
these
right.
these images, you're not going anywhere else, guys. So tune in for prime comparison.
Yeah, we over geekify the geeks. We look deeper than a lot of people do.
But with proof renders, you know, speaks for itself.
And speculation, that's right. So if you can help out, also share the video around, that'd be awesome. But there's another way to help, and I think Samuel will tell you about that now.
Yes, you can donate to help us keep this show going. All the shows we do, it's called Patreon. A lot of YouTubers use it. It's a monthly donation service. Think of it as like a Netflix or a Hulu or Amazon or anything. You just give a little bit each and every month. Goes towards helping production of this show. Backbone of support, we call it. Because if we know we've got that funding, we can give the time needed to make these shows and plan new and do more. And you get to see cool things like this because it's our job. So that's fun for everybody. So donate if you can. Patreon/Trekyards and give 10, 15, 20, $50 a month. It really does make a big difference.
Exactly. So, or you can head over to trekyards.com. Don't forget that one. There's a donate button there as well. But anyway, so until next time, guys, where we have some other great Discovery news or just great Star Trek stuff in general, we will see you then. I'm Captain Foley.
I got Hungs. Happy New Year. Welcome to New Year 2018. Woo.
Bye, guys.
Bye.